I had it up there, although, let's see, we'll check it when we get there.
It starts, but again, here's my card just in case.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, we'll get started. If you don't have a handout, there's handouts in the back left. Our main topic today is financial packages and sites by myself, Tom Kreuzer. Before we get to the main topic, we'll cover a few club things. No, I've got the wrong date on here. Our future meeting is February, and I don't have the date right in front of me, but it's, well, I think, no, it wouldn't be February 18th. It's around the 18th, the third Wednesday in February. And the topic will be tax preparation, and we'll go over TurboTax, Tax Act, H&R Block, and talk about some of the questions and whether the online version versus the desktop version, so we'll have that. Also this month we do have the MaxSig is Friday, January 27th in the 201 auditorium. And if you do have any iPad or iPhone or iMac, certainly we highly recommend that you join the club there and attend their monthly meetings also. Also, I list another one here coming up in February. The 3M Home Improvement Club is going to be having a meeting on TV options. And when I get more information on that, I'll forward that in the club emails. But that tentatively is scheduled for February 10th in the Connection over at the center there. Our officers, Jim Holman in the middle there is our president. Linda Brown is our vice president. I don't see Linda here. Paul Ebert is our membership secretary. He's in back there in the back row. Mike Griffin is our treasurer, and he also leads the MaxSig. Stan Miller is our secretary, stands in back by Paul. Andrew Petrucci is our communication coordinator, and my name is Tom Kreuzer. I'm a director at large. Dues, if you're a new member or paying your dues, you can drop it off with Paul and back there. And also a reminder, if you do change your email provider, make sure you notify Paul, because that's the way we send out these notices for the meetings, and that's the only way that we really have to keep in touch there. If you do have suggestions for topics, you can always email your topics to any of the board members or just talk to us. And if you want to volunteer to present on any hardware or software you use, could be stuff that you use at work or at home. And if you don't want to present, you can write a short or long article for our eBytes newsletter. Website, we list the website on the back of the handout, and it's in all the emails. You can get past meeting slides and handouts, and where possible, we will record the meeting and make that available also. We also have our deals section and our eBytes out there. And the eBytes have tips and hints and questions, so if you do have any of that, you can send that information to myself there, and we'll get it published. We just concluded our 2017 PC Club survey, and I wanted to thank the 66 people, which is pretty good. We have a total of about 135 members, so 66 is a very good number for a survey like this. And I'll be publishing the results probably in the next week or so. This is the 15th year that we've done it, so it's kind of interesting to look at some of the trends, how we use our computers and things that we do with it, and how much memory and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting in there. And we use that information for a number of the presentations that we do, and also to keep track of what topics are most pertinent to the members there. Any club questions before we get to the main topic? Okay. Okay, our main topic today, like I mentioned, is financial packages and sites, and some of the best investment advice that I got when I was younger was be your own financial advisor. And that actually came from a seminar I attended in Minneapolis. It was put on by Peter Lynch, who was running the Fidelity Magellan Fund. This was back in the early 80s, and at that time Magellan was one of the few mutual funds, one of the first mutual funds out there. And he went through a lot of things, and financial advisors can help you, but they shouldn't be your main driver in your finances. Only you know what you need. Only you know how much risk you're willing to take. Only you know can answer a lot of questions. And so financial advisors and other people can help you. And just like these tools that we're going to talk about today can help you, you ultimately have to make decisions and make a plan and move towards that plan. This is just a little comparison I did showing back in the 80s and what we have now. Back in the 80s, accounts, most of us just had a few accounts if you had them, checking, saving, maybe an investment account. Funds, there was just a handful of mutual funds at that time. You had to buy individual stocks if you wanted stocks. There was no such thing as a S&P 500 or fund that you could invest in. You obviously had the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones and stuff like that, but you couldn't invest in that without buying individual stocks. For retirement, you really didn't have many options. An IRA. Fees to buy and sell stock back then cost roughly $100 to buy and sell stock. And you usually bought and sold in round lots of 100 shares. If you were selling less shares, it was a bigger problem, let's put it that way. Information, if you wanted information about stocks and companies, there weren't that many sources of information. Wall Street Journal, Money Magazine, just a few things there. Tools, a lot of people, including myself, I started out on paper and pencil with column spreadsheets, the paper spreadsheets, not the Excel spreadsheet. Excuse me. Then as computers started coming along more, you had VisiCalc, and how many remember VisiCalc there? You there. And so VisiCalc was before Microsoft and its Excel products and that. Budget program, there weren't any budget programs. When the computers first came out, I wrote my own. When Quicken became available in 1986, that's the first package or budget package that I ended up using. Today, accounts, we've got unlimited accounts. Most of us have multiple banking accounts, checking accounts, health savings accounts, CDs, 401ks, all kinds of things. Funds, we've got thousands of funds that we didn't have. You have ETF, electronically traded funds, mutual funds. You have all these options. Retirement, there's lots of options for retirement. The fees to buy and sell stocks, in some cases it's free, certain sites, and if you do a certain volume, it's free, up to like $7.95 to buy and sell a stock. So that's really changed. Our information sources, we now have the unlimited internet. And I list that as both a good and a bad thing because it can be very misleading and there's inaccurate information, but there's also a wealth of good information out there too. And the tools that you use, well, that's our topic today. We'll be talking about what tools are available. Financial packages and sites, frequently people talk about doing something, but most never end up doing anything. Whether it's the planning for your retirement, whether it's saving for a vacation home, even the minor saving for a vacation. You just want to take a vacation next year or that. They'll talk about it, but they rarely ever put in effect a plan there. The longer you wait, the harder it is to reach your goals. If you do start planning early and you do start putting stuff in place, setting money aside, figuring the best place to put that money to let it grow and accumulate there, that's what you have to do. And you've probably heard me say this before on some of our others. None of us ever plan to fail. We just fail to plan. So we talk about planning, we talk about doing things, but we just don't put it into effect. If you come away with anything today, come away with start planning today. It's never too late. Doesn't matter whether you're in your 20s, doesn't matter whether you're 90, 100 years old. You still have to plan. You still have to plan and figure out what you're going to do with your money, where it's going to be, and stuff like that. It's not going to take care of itself. This is from the PC Club survey that just concluded, and these are some interesting results here. One of the questions we asked, how many hours per week do you spend on your home computer, tablet, or phone doing some of these different tasks? And the fourth highest is financial, investment, taxes, budget. So we do, on average, we do spend quite a bit of time there. Email and news and weather and that are higher options here, but roughly 2.07, which is the fourth highest there. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about brokerage houses and banks. My favorite is Fidelity, which is highly recommended by Money Magazine and hundreds of websites as the best brokerage firm to deal with. They provide low-cost trades, recommendations, stock analysis projections, education, and information. Some of the sites and packages out there will deliver news from one source. Fidelity has feeds from all the major sources, CNN, MarketWatch, Reuters, The Street, and on with where they collect their information. The other firms that round out the top five are Charles Schwab, E-Trade, TD Ameritrade, and Option House. So these other options certainly aren't that bad, but if you're going to go with one brokerage house to put your money in and do your trades and things like that, like I say, I'd highly recommend Fidelity there. Banks. As banks start charging more for their services, consider switching to one of the top 5 online banks. There's, oh, I saw something flash there. Thought I lost my deal. The top 5 online banks are Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Bank of the Internet USA, Ally, and Capital One 360. And these online banks will offer your checking accounts that pay interest, reimburse you for ATM fees, let you direct deposit. So if you have their app and stuff like that, you can just use your phone or your tablet, take pictures of checks that you want to deposit, never have to go to a bank, never have to send anything back and forth through the email. You can do all the stuff online there. And they have limited minimum balance requirements out there. Many people at 3M already have a Fidelity account because if you do the 3M Employee Stock Purchase Plan, that stock purchase plan is administered by Fidelity, so you already have a Fidelity account. Also, if you're in management, you have the 3M stock option program, and that's also administered by Fidelity. If you continue to bank with local banks like a Wells Fargo or a U.S. Bank, be sure to get their app and their website. The apps, I still do have a Wells Fargo account. I haven't quite cut the cord and gone completely with Fidelity, but I do use Wells Fargo for a few things there, and I do use their app, and it lets me transfer money, it lets me deposit checks, it lets me do a number of things there to where, again, like I mentioned, I don't have to send anything through the mail or take it down to a local Wells Fargo location. I can do it all through the app or through the internet there. Another site I highly recommend is bigcharts.com, and it's a favorite site for getting quotes and information on stocks. It's state of the art, and it'll keep you abreast of the stocks going up and down. It can graph and compare performance histories in a number of different graphs. Big Charts also posts the daily list of momentum stocks. You can see what's moving and excuse me, what's going on. It has news, so you can get news on the stock. The big advantage of this particular site is there is no login, so you don't have to be logging in, logging out. You can't buy and sell stock from this site. So all the site is for monitoring stocks that you may have. You can add your stocks, so you can just monitor exactly what you want. And like I say, the best thing is the interactive charts that you can do and the quotes that you can look up. Yes. Yeah, historical quotes can be handy if you're looking for a price, trying to find a price from 4 years ago or 10 years ago. You can look that up. Nowadays, anything that you buy, the brokerage houses have to keep track of your cost basis and things like that. But if you have older stocks, looking that up is handy. But it's also good to look up trends and where things are going. So you can go back if you wanted to compare Microsoft in the mid-90s to Apple. You can do that. You can see what's going on and stuff like that. So a lot of things that you can do with the site there and with the charts. Another of my favorites is bankrate.com, and bankrate.com is the best source for getting up-to-date interest rates nationwide on a wide variety of things. Can be mortgages, CDs, car loans, savings, student loans, credit cards, personal loans. You can see the site lets you pick what you want here, and then based on that you can limit it to what you're looking for, and it'll tell you all the different rates that are being paid by the online banks, the local banks, anything that you want to see there, you can look it up. And because interest rates are literally changing all the time, it's a very good site to go out there and make sure that you're getting the best that you can do. And it's especially handy for things like CDs. Even though I bank with Fidelity, I don't buy my CDs from Fidelity because Fidelity, frankly, does not pay a good interest rate, whether it's on a 1-year or a 5-year CD. There's a lot of other banks out there that pay more interest. And if you're planning for your future and you want to get the most amount that you can, you should be switching your CDs and other things to these higher paying banks. The banks are federally insured, so there's no way that you can lose money. So there's good reason to use a site like this to find the best rates that you can, not only for mortgages, but again, everything else, savings accounts, car loans, CDs, everything that you're dealing with. And it's not like one particular online bank or that consistently has the lowest rates. No, this month it may be this, next month it could be somebody else, so it changes. Banks are constantly changing their rates. Okay. Some other apps that are out there, I personally don't use, but have been recommended by other sites and as some of the top apps around. One of them is BillGuard. It's an app that'll monitor your credit card. It'll also let you do some budget and some tracking of the money there. And usually when I talk about monitoring your credit card, it's a case of you can get notifications when there's charges to your credit cards, or if they're over a certain amount, or location. So it's just a way to keep informed of who's using the card and what they're doing exactly there. You know, up to the second kind of information there. LearnVest, similar type of deal, lets you monitor money, creating some budgets and a few other things there. Capital helps you save money for the things you want, so it helps you set up a savings goal, whether you want to save for that vacation or save for retirement. It lets you set up some of these goals, and then we'll keep reminding you and do other things to get you there. Stock Watcher, it's monitoring stocks, $4.95 a month. If you're going to be a day trader, that might be something that would be useful. To me, the big charts is more than adequate because I'm not a day trader, and I wouldn't recommend anyone attempt to be a day trader. If you, when I talk to people that have retired or are trying to do some day trading, buying and selling during the day, my response to that is, just go out to the casino. Your odds are better out there than they are trying to predict day trading, what's going to go up and what's going to go down, because there's so many factors that affect stock prices and that there's no program, there's nothing that can predict the market there. Because if something could predict the market, guess what? They'd be a billionaire. But there is nothing that can predict the market. And the only thing you can do as an investor, doesn't mean you shouldn't invest, but invest for the long term. You're investing for the long term because the Dow Jones average and the S&P is going to go up and up and up and up, or it's always gone up and up and up and up. It's going to have these spikes along the way, but if you're in it for the long term, you're gonna ride it out. And trying to pick individual stocks doesn't matter if you think that you're the best at doing it. I'm going to pick Apple because it's done so well. Well, Apple from this point forward can be one of the worst stocks out there. Just because their past was well there, the iPhones aren't selling and things like that. And all of a sudden, a stock that in the past was doing well, there's no guarantee there. It's when you take these funds that are total market funds, large cap funds, small cap funds, that take multiple stocks, that you're getting the best of the stocks going up there over a period of time, and you don't have all your eggs in one crate there.
Doesn't it seem inconsistent? Don't you think the indexes contain the good, the bad, the ugly? Don't you think you could at least get the good and stay away from the bad and the ugly? The 3M has been one that I'd say is a good stock.
Yes, and I've had people say that, and I certainly over the last 2 decades, 3M has been a very good stock. Prior to that, it underperformed. I've always had money in the S&P 500, and the S&P 500 is in general the bellwether of any mutual fund, any individual stock picking. Can you outperform the S&P 500? And if you can't, you shouldn't try and do it. And if you look at a stock like 3M or that, 3M is very fickle. It'll have its ups and downs. The market will go on for a year, 2 years, and it'll sit there all by itself, not doing anything other than the dividends. The dividends are good, but there's been years when the market has gone up 13%, 14%, and 3M has gone up 2 or 3%. So it's...
I know it's hard to beat the index. That's what it seems odd, because you got the bad and ugly stocks in there.
I wouldn't say they're the bad and ugly because, again, now if you S&P 500 is the 500 biggest corporations. You're not talking about, Joe Blow down the street that just incorporated and may go out of business in 2 years. So you're not talking about that. When you start getting into total market and stuff like that, then you start getting some of these smaller companies, and a number of the smaller companies, frankly, are going to be gone. Over half of the companies do not survive 7 years. They're out of business. But you have small companies, just like on Shark Tank, or if you've watched other things, that exponentially grow and stuff like that. And so small cap, if you're investing in small cap, at certain times is going to outperform the S&P 500. But it is more riskier than the S&P 500. And that's you being your financial advisor have to know the risks. And the thing I'll warn about being a financial advisor, most people do the exact opposite of what they should do. So they'll invest, well, that's the truth. Well, they'll invest, let's say, in an S&P 500, and let's say we're back in the year 2007. 2008 rolls around and we have the collapse. Markets go down 40%. What do people do? They take their money out. A large number of people took their money out. They said, I've lost too much. I've done that. I don't want to lose any more. They took their money out. What happened? It did take a couple of years, but it rebounds. That's what the market does. Market goes up and down there. And so taking that money out, they took their money out at one of the lowest points. Then they put their money back in at one of the higher points. After it had rebounded up. Well, they lost out on, 50% gain or more by bad timing. They thought that they could time the market, when to pull the money out, when to put the money in. You can't time the market.
Well, I'd recommend betterinvesting.org if you really want to know, if you really want to get into that business of individual stocks.
Yeah, and certainly there's lots of sites, lots of information on the internet and that. It's just I'd be a little bit wary of individual stocks. I look at individual stocks, I tell people, because I do a bunch of financial advising myself to other people, as kind of that going out to the casino type deal. Because individual stocks, and I don't care how good they are, will have a lot of variability. And you never want to have a large number of your eggs in one basket. Just look at the people in Enron, the employees in Enron. Stock was going up. Oh, we aren't going to put it in an S&P 500 because that isn't making as much as our own stock. We're putting it in our own stock, Enron, because it's going up, and everybody within the company is talking to everybody else saying, what are you going to do with all your money, and what are you going to do with all yours? Well, then it collapsed. And that can happen. That happens all the time to individual stocks. I had IBM stock. Best stock in the world, best dividends in the world, stuff like that. And then the personal computers came along. And IBM just about went out of business. And that's what happens. That can happen to any company nowadays. So putting it all in one or betting, and it's awful risky there. And I'll put it in mutual funds, and I do have some individual stocks, but those are kind of the things that I play with. That's money that I play with, that if it does go down, it's not going to affect me that much, things like that, but I'm not going to put a large amount in there and be tied that much to it. So like 3M stock or things like that, you'll hear financial advisors saying, don't have any more than 10% of your 401k or whatever in 3M stock. So if you haven't moved out some of your matching stuff that 3M's given, you've got more than 10%, and you shouldn't have more than 10% in any one stock there. But again, do your research, figure out your risk and what you can take and that. And these tools certainly can help you monitor and see what's going on. Okay. Yahoo Finance, this is a site that's been around a long time. It'll help you track and monitor the markets and the economy.
Tom, are you worried about Yahoo with their
Breach?
yeah?
Well,
Have you done anything about that?
I don't have a Yahoo account. If you had a Yahoo account, I'd highly recommend you go out there and change your password. If you have that same password on any other account, go out and change all of those accounts. And, from a security standpoint, don't use the same password. Don't use the same accounts on all these different sites and stuff like that, because if one of them gets hacked, which all of these different places, no matter how secure they are, somebody from the inside or bad set of programming lets somebody steal the information, and then it's available for anybody there.
Yahoo forced us to change our passwords. They didn't even let us in after a while.
Oh, okay. But I know people that had a Yahoo account, never canceled the account, and just left it out there. And so the account is still out there. And the account and the password is there. And that password, again, if you use that same account and password, let's say for your Wells Fargo, that's what the hackers are looking to get at. They aren't looking to get at your Yahoo Mail and see what's going on. They want to get at bank accounts. They want to get at 401ks. They want to get at something where they can get some money and do some stuff. So, that's the reason to have different accounts, different passwords, and be wary of some of that stuff. Okay. Penny Hoarder, that's another site with lots of tips and info. Lots of little tips on what to do to change your finances, to save money, things like that. I mentioned spreadsheets here because spreadsheets still are a great tool. Because there's usually, you want to slice and dice something a particular way on the site, or the thing may not have it exactly the way that you want it. So spreadsheets are still a great way to track some things. Are there other apps or sites that other people would recommend? Yes, Chuck.
For doing my checking, checkbook, that application is really handy, and it's not very expensive.
Okay, so checkbook, I guess.
It's an app I run on my.
Okay. Anything else anyone wants to mention, or? Yeah, on the mutual funds, the investing and stuff like that, the more you get into it and the more information you have, then you'll understand the trends and what's going on and what affects, because bond rates and things like that, and mortgage rates and the effect of interest rates going up. What does this do to this side of the market, or things like that? The more you understand those things, it lets you ride out some of these up and down spikes, because this is what normally happens. This is what the market goes on, and things like that are taking place. So having some of these other sources of information and knowing is important to what you're doing. Yes?
No, because most people have access to it. As you know, the Fidelity site's got so much information on it. It's great.
Right. Fidelity just has a ton. As an example, if you go out there and do research on 3M, an individual stock, it'll tell you these are the analysts that say it's a buy, these are the analysts that say that it's a hold, these are the analysts that say that it's a sell. So you can see how many people are buying it and stuff like that. And you can also see numbers like how many members of the board at 3M are selling stock. Well, if the board is all selling stock, that may be an indication that they may know that it's about to go down, or they want to get their money out in something else. So understanding some of those trends and that if you're dealing with a lot of individual stocks can give you a little better comfort level when you're buying and selling there. Okay. Okay, now we'll talk about Mint, and we'll go into depth on Mint.com and Quicken. And Mint.com, it is the #1 app and site for everything there. Who uses Mint.com? We don't have anybody? That surprises me. That surprises me.
#1, but not
You gave a presentation on Mint a couple of years ago. The thing that scared me about it was the idea that all my financial data was online and could be hacked, just as a Wells Fargo site or some other site could be hacked.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Since that time, and this is a good example, things change. Mint.com, what I'll be telling you, was purchased by Intuit. So Intuit, who owns TurboTax and Quicken, purchased it. Quicken was just sold off. Quicken is essentially probably going to do a slow death. Mint is owned by Intuit. Mint is Intuit's future financial package. They just added bill pay and some other things you'll see in here.
How does that relate to QuickBooks?
QuickBooks is the same thing. Quicken, and that was sold off to another company. Intuit did not want to move forward with the product.
So I should have just bought Quicken.
No. What I'm.
I get my money back.
I know. I'm using Quicken. I've used Quicken for 30 years, and I still intend to use Quicken until Mint has more features and functions than what Quicken had. Right now, Mint does not have all the capabilities of a Quicken. So I do recommend, if you're doing stuff right now, you'll end up doing it in Quicken there. But if you haven't done anything before in budgets and want to get started, get started in Mint. If you run out of features and functions and want to do more slicing and dicing quick, I'd still recommend buy Quicken. But in 2 years from now, that's probably going to reverse back to Mint's going to have those features and functions, because Intuit's going to put all this research and development and features and functions into Mint, and that's where the progression's going to take place. Yes.
Mint, how many versions of that can be installed on the computer?
No, Mint is entirely an internet app. You can do it on your tablet. You can do it from a website, and you'll see some of the features and functions there. But it isn't a standalone there, and you do have to register and put your stuff out on the internet there. Yes.
So, do you think maybe they do it now, but does Mint offer you the ability to import what you've got on Quicken into Mint now?
No, it doesn't. In the future, it may, but right now it doesn't. Let's take this is now. We may not go out here. Well, I do have backups for the backup. This is
How do you keep track of your financial life? Statements? Spreadsheets? Scribbles? It's time for something better, something easier, something smarter. Mint is a free, easy way to manage your money that empowers you to take charge of your financial life. Get started with a simple one-time setup. Add your bank, credit card, home loan, and investment accounts. Mint quickly and securely pulls in the information and organizes it for you. That's it. No more bookkeeping. Mint keeps it all up to date. You can see all your accounts in one place with one login, anywhere, anytime. Mint uses bank-level security and alerts you to any suspicious transactions so you can rest easy. Mint shows you where your money goes. Your expenses are automatically categorized so you can keep track of how much and where you're spending. With one click, you can create a budget based on your spending history, make adjustments, track your progress, and find ways to spend smarter. Mint reviews your financial picture and makes personalized recommendations on ways you can save. You get all the information you need to make smarter decisions and plan for the future. Mint, it's the best free way to manage your money. Sign up and get started with Mint in less than 5 minutes.
So that's the quick overview there, and it is very easy to use. It is very easy to set up. Let me get going here, back here. So it is a free website, doesn't cost you anything, but you do have to use it from your tablet or from your phone or from your browser there. And it brings all your financial accounts together in one place. So if you have checking, savings, Fidelity, Wells Fargo, all your credit cards, all the information together there. It categorizes your transactions, so it'll automatically look at the transactions, and based on the payee, who it was to, it'll try and set the budget. So if this was Applebee's restaurant, it knows that goes into dining. And if it was Home Depot, it knows that this stuff it'll put in a household deal. If it was Cub or that, it knows to put it into a grocery account, a budget account. So it'll do some automatic stuff for you, and the stuff that it doesn't do automatically, it lets you decide what category it should go into, and then in the future when accounts come in with that same payee, it'll move them into those accounts. So very easy package to use. I mentioned it is the #1 online personal finance tool. Over 17 million users are using it, and it is highly secure. It's more secure than your local bank or stuff like that, because Intuit, this has the Intuit security, and it's been known for it with TurboTax and everything else there. Yes.
How can they afford to make it a free website?
The way they make it a free website is you heard them mention in there the recommendations, and the recommendations are kind of like advertising, except a lot of their recommendations are very good recommendations. So as an example, if you purchase CDs, it'll look at your purchase of the CDs, it knows what interest rates you're getting, and it'll say, did you know that you can get 1.25% by doing an Ally CD or doing a Synchronicity CD? So it'll make recommendations on what you should do with your money, how to cut your mortgage, how to get more out of it. If it sees that your brokerage house is charging you bigger fees, it'll say, if you switch over to this other brokerage house, you'll save this much. And so they make money on referrals and suggestions there. And so there's no plan to start charging for it. It still is intended to be a free system down the road there. Okay? It's been named the best online personal finance tool by Money Magazine, PC Magazine, all the places there. And just like I mentioned, it makes it by the ads and recommendations and links to other services that it can provide. So if it sees that you're too conservative with your investments and stuff like that, it'll say, you may be too conservative with your investments, and it makes recommendations. So it's constantly making recommendations. It's looking at where you're spending, and if you're spending money, let's say your credit card, it'll say, gee, have you considered switching to another credit card because you pay off the bill every month, we can get you 2% in rebates. as opposed to you may be getting 1% or no percent in rebate. It'll say, consider doing this, and so it's constantly making the recommendations. It can track any number of bank accounts, credit cards, investments, 401ks, and loans. It was acquired by Intuit in 2009, and Intuit, if you don't know, makes Quicken, QuickBooks, and TurboTax there. It's trusted, safe, and secure. In the past, Mint was read-only, meaning no money could be moved in or out of any of the accounts in Mint. So from the Mint application, all you could do is view what was happening to your accounts. So what happened on your credit card or what happened on your bank account, it would be kind of a reporting tool there. But what's happened is, let's see, I think I have it here, and actually the last few months here, Mint has added bill paying services. So it can pay your bills, and it's free to use the bill pay service if it's linked to a bank account. If you're going to pay your bills from your credit card, there's a small fee to pay from your credit card to have your bills paid. But it is starting to do more of these services that Quicken and some of the others have. Yes?
I have my Quicken set up to go out and get all the information that you're talking about there. And one thing that I've noticed on it is, like, okay, for Wells Fargo, they may send the information out to, at different times of the day, because I think they do a lot of their data processing on the West Coast. And so I guess my question is, on Mint.com, is it live?
Mint does it a couple of different ways. If you don't do anything during the day, it's not actively going out there. It'll only go out there at night, download everything, and then send out alerts to you and emails and in the application. But if you bring it up during the day, then you have the option to get the most up-to-date there right away there. So you kind of have the best of both. But if you don't do anything, what's that?
You could actually schedule it.
Well, some of it you don't have control over the schedule. It'll go out once a day, all the time, and download. And I don't believe there's any option to change that. And then once a week, there's kind of a weekly summary. You'll get emails and you'll get notices if you're over budget or things like that on things there. And then you can go out to the site and adjust things or do it. But there's some flexibility in there. Yes, Chuck?
I think I read an article once that said that some of the places that could provide financial data were walking at Mint, coming into their site. I don't know, has that been resolved? A and B, do you see a trend in the future where other places like Fidelity, for example, might say, I really don't want to do this anymore because it's more to my advantage to force all my customers to come directly to you?
It's somewhat of a controversy out there now. Mint, along with Quicken, because it's actually using the same engine to extract data from the sites, supports 15,000 sites in the United States for downloading data. It's a double-edged sword for companies, let's say, like Fidelity, because Fidelity would like you to use their app and not have Quicken Mint making recommendations to move stuff out of Fidelity and buy a CD at Ally. They don't want you to see that. But if they don't offer the ability, then they get feedback from their customers saying, we are using Mint and we want you. So it's, at this point, most of the larger banking institutions, brokerage houses, most everybody is supporting Mint and Quicken and TurboTax, because it's all of these that Intuit controls in terms of being able to connect and get transactions out of it. So that's the current state. What happens down the road, I'm not sure there. But they are adding more services here. We'll move along. We got to It lets you see what's happening in all your accounts at any moment of the day, and that's where, yes, you can open it and you can see that you just made a charge, and as soon as that charge gets registered on your credit card company, it's in there. There's also a free mobile app to track your money as you're going along. And you saw that you can set budgets and create plans to reach your financial goals there. You can track your progress online and stay up to date with weekly emails, so it does have, it'll tell you the progress there. It'll also help you achieve your goals with free advice that I mentioned there, and next steps that you should do. And this is where I highly recommend, if you haven't done anything before with budgets and that, start out using Mint. Because it's free, it's easy to use, it's easy to set things up. Start out with that package. If you need more features and functions, then the next step after that is like a Quicken. But we'll be talking about Quicken down the road. You may have to switch from Quicken back to Mint maybe a couple of years from now. Any questions on Mint at this time? Yes?
Do you see any advantage? Do you use Mint bill pay service?
I haven't used the bill pay service. I do use Mint, yes.
No, I know you use Mint. You've used Mint for years. Do you see any point to their, do you see any advantage to their bill pay service over just using Mint?
I use Quicken. I use Quicken more, and Quicken has more features and functions. An example of Quicken is in the 2017 version, Quicken can now go out to some of your accounts. So like, let's say in Excel, get the bill, get the amount for this month, and then pay it. So it has the ability of not only, linking to and transferring money, it can figure out how much money it has to send to the account. So there's things that it can do more automatically than what a Mint can do.
But Mint bill pay probably will link up to.
The Mint bill pay it's a good service, especially if you're writing checks today and putting them in the mail. I mean, that's 1980. I mean, that's the truth.
Yeah.
Today, you don't have to do that. You can just transfer the money.
I do everything with my bank bill pay service.
Right.
I write maybe 2 checks a month or something, and even there I wouldn't have to, but I choose to for a couple of things. But, I guess the only shortcoming of it is it doesn't pull e-bills for very many places. I mean, it does for a lot of places, but most of them you just have to set it manually.
Right.
It's really not that big a deal. You take your bill and you set it up and it's done.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go on here. I'll try and quickly cover Quicken here. Who uses Quicken? Okay, we got a few more in here. We'll show a little overview of that just because it'll give you a little flavor for what the differences is there.
Understanding how all the financial pieces of your life fit together isn't easy. Tracking spending, savings, investments, and staying on top of your bills. Even figuring out how much you spend on groceries and dining out each month can be time-consuming, painful, and frankly, overwhelming. But when you bring everything together, your bills, your savings, your finances, and your investments, what you're really connecting is pieces of your life. Whether you're settling down, moving in, or planning ahead, Quicken is here for every step. Quicken is a simple yet powerful personal finance tool that makes managing your financial life easy. Imagine all your bank accounts, credit cards, investments, and retirement accounts downloaded in one place. No need to enter or track things by hand. Your spending is automatically categorized so that you know where your money is going. Just open Quicken and get an overview of your finances or dive into the details. You can even search your entire financial history, getting both clarity and control over your money. And if you own a small business, we'll help you separate business expenses from personal spending, invoice your clients, and simplify your tax filing. If you own rental properties, we'll track your tenants, rental payments, and create profit and loss reports. While other tools can give you insight into one account, Quicken goes above and beyond by tracking, categorizing, and recording all of your transactions, not just the past 6 to 12 months, but years' worth. There's even smart features like projected balances, so you know what's safe to spend, and budgeting, so you can take a trip, buy a home, or even send your kids to college. We'll help you plan for retirement by projecting your financial outcome based on your current situation and goals. Test different scenarios, retirement age, keeping or selling your home, and savings rates. Create a flexible budget that works for you and your family, or compare your current income and spending against prior years. Track your bills in one place, so nothing's ever missed, and avoid late fees. You can even pay everything from within Quicken. Quicken helps keep your confidential information safe, thanks to robust 128-bit and 256-bit encryption. We have more than 30 years of experience helping people like you make secure and accurate decisions for the long term. We even take the hassle out of tax time by making it easy to download detailed reports and compile receipts, because honestly, only accountants enjoy tax season. With our new mobile app, you can manage your money from anywhere, in real time, not just from your desktop computer. Now, even more powerful, with investments, enhanced search, and offline use. Best of all, it's super easy to get started or upgrade. Simply add your accounts and we do the rest. So whether you want to create a budget, track your investments, save money, or pay off debt, Quicken makes managing your money a snap for every step in life. Understanding how
So it's certainly a lot of overlap for what you saw and what you heard in a mint there. For me, Quicken is for people who really need to know where their money is and where it's going. It currently takes that step beyond mint there. You can do a lot more detail. It's the most powerful software available today. The other competitor used to be Microsoft Money. Microsoft Money kind of faded. It's still available, but no market share, no capabilities compared to Quicken. There are lots of versions of Quicken. I recommend the Quicken Deluxe version. It lists for $75, but never pay list price, so you can get it for $35 on Amazon. And they do have a version called the starter version, but it's too limited. I wouldn't recommend it. You want the Deluxe. And the thing with Quicken, if you haven't had Quicken before, is Quicken forces you to buy a new version at least every 3 years. Because after 3 years, they inactivate the version that's older than 3 years old, so that it cannot download any transactions from banks or anything. Well, that's the main feature, or certainly one of the things that you should be doing. So this is kind of their way of forcing you to upgrade to a new version. So you do have to upgrade every 3 years. Personally, I don't upgrade. The upgrade, if you bought it from Quicken, would cost you $45. You can just buy a new version for $35 and get the new version and migrate your data, so you don't have to spend $10 more and go through Quicken. These are the different versions. I mentioned the starter version. I don't recommend that. The deluxe version, even though it lists for $75, you can get it for $35 at Amazon. Various places will have it on sale. Sometimes you can get it for $39 or stuff like that at some of the places, but look around there. They do make a version for the Mac. They have a Premier version. They have a home and business version. And they have a rental, if you have rental property, for doing invoices and everything. I mentioned that in March of 2016, so just last year, Intuit sold Quicken to HIG Capital, another company. Intuit is shifting its focus to Mint and to TurboTax. Long term, will Mint replace Quicken? Who knows? But short term, Quicken is still the best product. You know, and you're going to be able to use it at least for another 3 years there, so without having to buy a new version or to upgrade. Quicken does everything that Mint does, plus a lot more. It downloads the transactions from accounts, auto-assigns them to budgets and categories based on payee. It can automatically rename the payee. So there's things like that that it can do that Mint currently doesn't do. Mint will let you automatically categorize stuff, but it doesn't let you rename it and do some of these other things. You can set up your budgets, a little bit easier to set up your budgets and manage your budgets and Quicken there. Categories you can hide, you can do things like that. You can put in goals in here. You can schedule future transactions and reminders in here. You can project your income and expenses. This is, I mentioned earlier, the bill site. It can go out and get the amounts and pay the bill automatically there. So there's things like that. To reconcile your bank account balance, I do that, and usually it just takes me a few minutes there. You can sync with a mobile app for tablets and smartphones. You can planning on debt and loan reduction. It'll tell you, well, if you make extra payments here, this is what it's going to do here. Lifetime planner for retirement and that. Tax center. Pay bills from your computer. It can write and print checks. It does have the pay bills online. And it lets you export your Quicken data to Excel if you do want to work with it and within a spreadsheet or that. Hundreds of reports and charts, banking, spending, comparison, investing, tax, cash flow, spending by payee, budgets, income versus expenses, and then they all can be customized with dates and only using certain accounts or certain budget categories. You can do all that. Many of the online tools like Mint.com are built for people to simplistically track their money and stop living paycheck to paycheck. Quicken is for those users that kind of go past that and want to do more into the planning and the detail there. So like I mentioned, it's kind of the step. If you haven't started out with anything, start out with Mint. If you got into Mint and you'd like to have more capabilities, then Quicken's the one for you. I typically spend between a half hour and an hour a week to download, update, and plan in Quicken. So it's not like you have to dedicate a great deal of time, but you do want to set aside time to make sure that you update your transactions and check you reconcile your various accounts and things like that in there.
Can you get way behind on that? If you're gone for vacation for a month, would you be in trouble?
Personally, I don't. I have always been an anal person when it comes to budgets. When I was like 10 years old, I used to keep track of where my money went. So I have always jotted down, I spent so much, I went to the movie and spent so much, and now I use different tools, but I actually track all of my cash.
Hardly anybody will do that.
You can catch up pretty easily.
You can catch up, and especially, some people are just downloading transactions. Myself, I'm entering my transactions so that when they're downloaded, they darn well better match, and everything better match. If something doesn't match, where did it come from? That kind of thing.
Right?
What's that?
Mine, it's always user entry.
It's usually, yes. I'm not looking for. I haven't found an error from a bank there. It's usually a receipt that I had forgotten about, a place I had stopped where I didn't get a receipt, or something like that.
Or the thing, the designation, the way it comes through the bank doesn't really match.
Yes. Some of the names and so that's where that payee and.
But you look into it.
Right.
Did you does Mint, going back to Mint for a second, does Mint have the capability to, like, if you write a check and you enter it manually in Mint, so it knows it's there, or it just has to wait until it actually shows up?
Mint only manages by downloading the transactions and doing stuff. So that's where Quicken, if you want to put it in and then want to reconcile, that's a function of Quicken. It's not a function of Mint, because Mint is basically getting you started in doing these things, and it doesn't want to overcomplicate it. I do enter my stuff, I do reconcile, I do make sure that everything balances there. Yes?
A couple of things. One of them is with Quicken, you can actually save everything to its online site, and including that, you can also back it up to a flash drive, which I recommend. And the other thing is, I haven't put transactions into my checking account or anything manually or anything for years. Recently, in 2017, I added all my Scott Trade accounts. I got 5, and I mean it just goes out there and it's up to the date, the value of every account that I've got. So I've had very, very good luck with it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. As we all have more and more accounts and are trying to keep track of it. The individual sites, like a Scott Trade or Fidelity, certainly do a very good job of letting you see that little portion there. But when you start having all these things all over, getting, okay, if you want to look at your investments and how many of those investments would you consider to be in large cap? And you've got several brokerage accounts and you've got 401ks and you've got this, how are you going to get those numbers together? And that's where Mint and Quicken can bring those numbers together and tell you that. So the advantage of pulling together a lot of this stuff individually, if all you had was a singles Wells Fargo account for your checking and savings, you could use the account, you could write your reports, you could see the current balance, you could create categories, things like that. But these packages let you bring everything together from all over.
The update now, and it pulls in all the accounts that you have.
Right.
So less than 30 seconds.
Very powerful there. And like I mentioned here, I've used it for 30 plus years that it's been in existence, and it's not without its problems. It will crash, especially if you've accumulated 100,000 transactions, things like that you've downloaded, and that creating reports, searching for things, and things like that can take some time and do some things there. Yes.
Does Mint do a good job with the X-ray you just talked about?
Pulling together from multiple accounts.
Pulling together and then showing small cap, large cap.
Yes, it'll do as good a job as it can there. It also lets you. We mentioned that you couldn't manually put in bank checking things, but you can manually put in things like you have a car and this is what it's worth, and so your fixed assets there. You can put in your house and it goes out to Zillow and it pulls in the current value and updates the current value of what Zillow has. So, there's things like that to give you that total net worth and where are your allocations within there.
Fidelity has Holding, which does a great job, but it doesn't do the X-ray report very well.
Fidelity does a good job, or at least I've had it do a good job, but it's just my Fidelity account. Now I've got stuff obviously at 3M and the 401k, and I have allocations within that. It has no visibility of that money and what funds I have it in there.
But they have
and I have a Vanguard account, and so I do have multiple accounts, and trying to pull together the multiple accounts, that's where a single site isn't going to be able to see those other accounts.
And this big thing they have is a website. They have something called Holding, which does a great job doing just what you talked about by putting it in.
Okay.
But it doesn't do a great job of showing the X-ray report.
Okay.
Here's the large cap.
Yeah, I guess I haven't used that
I
or.
love that product. I just don't like that product.
Okay. Other questions or comments? If you,
Maybe another question. So when you pull in credit card statements, I haven't had it split out, but so you pull in your Discover bill or your Visa bill or whatever. Right now, for me, it's credit card. All lumped together. It doesn't split that out into groceries or household or whatever. But do you have it set up to do that? Does it do a good job?
yeah, both Mint and Quicken, when you link it to a credit card, you're going to get the individual transactions. So each bill that you have is out there. That bill is going to have a payee on there, and a lot of times, I think it was mentioned, a lot of times the payees can be vague because it doesn't say exactly. Let's say you went to a Chipotle. It may not say Chipotle. It may say this holding company or whatever. Whoever processed that credit card transaction. But what you can do in both Mint and Quicken is you can take that transaction and you can say this transaction really is for dining and assign it to dining. And in Quicken, I can rename that and I can have it say Chipotle. So that the next time it comes in as Chipotle. So there's things that can be done because consistently that if I go to Chipotle again, it's going to get processed through the same deal, and the payee is going to be the same name there.
You gotta watch that though too, because I had Cup Foods. I bought a cake for the church. I put down for tax purposes, and I didn't pay attention for a year, and all of a sudden, all my groceries were tax free.
Yeah, and that's a good point there. I mean, when you do start assigning things, that's where keeping track of your budgets, because if all of a sudden your budget spikes in one area, it may be that something that you weren't counting on is now showing up in that budget category or things like that in there. So that's where, you are going out, you're looking at stuff that month to month, are you under or over, or what's your cash flow occurring there?
I'll just have the makers of Quicken do it for me.
Yeah.
Well, what happens if you go to a big box store and buy milk, towels?
Good question. The Mint currently does not let you do what's called splitting. Quicken lets you split it, so I could say this is so much groceries, so much home improvement, so much household, however you want to split it out. Same way as your paycheck. Your paycheck, you have different tax categories, you have 401ks, you have stock purchase. Well, Quicken lets you individually break out all those. A package like Mint, all you do is have one number to one category. And that gets back to this, okay, Mint is a good starter, but if you really want to get the detail and you really want to get things out, then Quicken is really the only tool that I'd recommend.
Amazon, the same thing.
Right.
Groceries, it could be.
Right. And I use eBay and PayPal. PayPal will, and I use credit card. Well, then the credit card shows up with the company that you bought it from or the individual that you bought it from, not the other. So those Mint or Quicken, if you bring the stuff in and it doesn't know what it's there, it just leaves it as uncategorized. So it'll be in a budget category called uncategorized. It's up to you to go through those uncategorized and then categorize them in the appropriate buckets that you want them to show up in. Yes.
So you mentioned that you sometimes add things into Quicken manually, and then you will subsequently download your reconcile thing. Does that put a double entry in if you put something in manually, then you download, let's say, from Wells Fargo?
No, what it does is you put it in, and then usually I download at least once a week, update everything, stock prices and transactions and that. And when it downloads the transactions, what Quicken does is Quicken will show you the downloaded transactions, and then it'll show you which ones it matched. So it'll look at the amount and the date and say, oh, this is the one. It doesn't have to be the exact date, because, you know, maybe it cleared 2 days later than what you first wrote it, or you wrote a check for a birthday gift and the people don't cash it for a month or 2 months. It doesn't matter. If it can match up that to it, it'll match it up. And if it doesn't match it up to it, it says right in this list, unmatched. You can go over here and you can manually match it. Or you can, or if you truly didn't enter it in, you just leave it and it'll add a new entry based on that, what it downloaded there. So you have the option, you have the control, you can monitor everything there. But there's the case of, okay, is this something that you really forgot, or is this something that is a fraudulent charge? You know, that kind of a thing. And I've had people that will have a credit card, and they may have 2 or 3 kids also having copies of the credit card, and that's where it's kind of handy, because the kids will tell you one thing, but they may not tell you everything that they charged or where they were, stuff like that. So, you know, seeing some of these other transactions and things like that, they aren't fraudulent. The kids just didn't report it. Any other questions? We're over there, but thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.